Yeah, you're good. Roll call, please.
Chavez. Hightower,
Here.
Jackson,
Yes.
Mason.
Here.
Mora. O'Connell. Sosa.
Here.
Started.
Do you want to stay with some phone? Joe.
There's no one on the Zoom right now. And it's
Participation? You know all?
No public participation.
Full business? We're going to new business now.
Mr. Byrne, go ahead.
It looks like, more, enjoying.
Perfect. Well, and Mr. Schwartz.
Mr. Byrne, can we continue?
You can continue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barnes. New business. Oh,
Yes, so we have Bain with us to present the construction project update, the change order review, and the construction budget update.
Good evening, everyone.
good evening.
So I have with me tonight, I have Ricardo Anguano, who is our project manager, who's been managing the day-to-day at the Riley North Lake site as well. So I'm going to get into the updates there and the change management review, or the change order review. Brought him along. He has more of the in-depth knowledge in case there's any questions on the change orders for that side of the project. But so Ricardo's been working on the day-to-day at Riley North Lake. So
Well, a long street for us, right? All right.
So I'll start off by, while Joe's pulling that up, I'll talk about progress here at Sunnyside and Parker. Just to keep things moving. I do have a lot for you guys tonight. I'm sure you've seen it in the agenda. But progress wise here at Sunnyside and Parker, we're nearing the completion of the enclosure. So we're actually putting our last section of large curtain wall in. That should be done by midweek this week, in the last section of aluminum doors by the end of the week for sure. So by the end of the week, we will be fully enclosed here at Sunnyside and Parker with all glass, with the exception of anywhere you see the pink foam in the windows. Those are the pieces of glass that got broken in transit or lost in shipping or whatever they may be. So those have all been reordered. You'll see those pieces of pink styrofoam that are holding out the elements and keeping us cool inside right now. Those will be getting swapped out in the near future here over the next couple of weeks. So,
Sure. All those windows, with the yellow, open.
not all broken. Some of them are just mixed up in crates. So there's some of them there's a lot of pieces of glass, a lot of small pieces of glass on this job, and the way the manufacturer is shipping it, sometimes they just don't find them all in the crate. The pallet has it come out here. So, but not broken for anything that's happened on site or lost for any reason to that. So no concern of the districts, I guess. I understand. We've pretty much completed the detailing of the roofing as well. We've gone around and installed a lot of the metal coping that you'll see around the decorative metal that covers the edge of the roofing membrane and laps down on the brick. So with that, that's gotten rid of any or minimizing the potential leaks. That's a good place to be as we're drywalling inside. So roofing detailing is wrapping up. Glass is wrapped up on the outside, like I talked. Metal panels are going to be starting this week. So if you look at the building now, basically anything you see left in blue is going to be covered in metal panels. So there's 2,300 or so metal panels on the building. Those are going to start this week and continue on for the next couple of months. So there's a lot of work to be done there. We did start today also prepping to pour the sidewalks along the east side of the building. So you'll see a little bit of activity out here in the parking lot with the asphalt and concrete being torn up. We did hit a delay with that with the labor strike that was going on in the quarries in the area. So we were backed up. We should have been, we had endeavored to do the parking lot, redo the parking lot this summer, as well as all the sidewalks on the east side of the building. But because of the material shortage and the labor strike, we had to back off of that because we couldn't guarantee that we would be ready for the start of school. So we flip-flopped our plan and we're going to get the sidewalks done right now and hopefully before school. And then we'll later this fall, we'll go after the parking lot once we have the road along the west side of the project completed, where the parents can drop off. So
that part of the project says Brentwood North.
just that little bit, yeah. So the labor strike was 6, 7 weeks, something like that. So it's really got things in the mind. Asphalt was completely unavailable. Now it's a matter of getting the asphalt plants, and the concrete plants restocked with aggregate. And I've been hearing anything from 2 to 4 weeks before asphalt's really available in large quantities. So we're just not going to risk it. We've got a system in place for the parents to drop off and the teachers to park and whatnot. It's not worth missing the date that so that's the outside of the building. Inside the building, we continue to move at a pretty quick pace with drywall. So sunny side end of the building, the first and second floors of area A, which is the southwest corner. Cabinets are in, ceiling grids in. We're preparing to put the ceiling tiles in place. Permanent light fixtures are going in. Walls are painted. Ceramic tiles going in the bathrooms. And we're preparing to start flooring probably late August. So we are working through a couple details. One of my challenges or issues I listed on my monthly report is that we've had a delay in our nano walls. Remember your walkthroughs? We've got the large operable partitions at the front of each classroom. So when we ordered those, we should have had them sometime in June. But right now we're pushed off till October. So we're working through that with Northern Glass. Wold is also pushing on their reps from their side of things to see if we can get those faster. So other than that, we continue to drywall moving to the north. So we're probably right at about 50% drywall inside. Continuing to finish, and we'll be moving up here into the to the northeast corner, area D, with drywall later this week, and keep going from there. So got a plan together. We're also working in the cafeterias, framing a lot of the high ceilings. Remember that's a big tall space in there. So we're framing the high ceilings and the walls around the upper windows, trying to bring that down to a level that we can then build the stage and the learning stairs. So still a lot of framing and drywall to be done, but that's been the main focus right now. Like I said, painting, ceramic tile, a lot of finishes are underway in there as well. Cabinet deliveries continue to come on time. We have 3 areas of cabinets here now, so both levels of area A, first floor of area E, and next week the second floor of area E comes. So moving along pretty well inside. Still right where we were as far as schedule wise. We're still behind and tracking towards the beginning of November. First stage.
Maybe the last time was you was that we were about 2 weeks behind.
That puts us right at about 3.5. So we're tracking like November 1st right now.
Also,
It was October 6th.
also,
Right. Aside from the nano walls, we don't have any major material concerns here.
that's my question.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board so far?
Joe, if you want, play the drone video for Sunset. Show you just how far along there's only one corner here that the windows are left out on. It's the northwest corner of the building. So this video was July 19th, a couple weeks ago. So you can see from that, all the blue, right, a lot of area to cover, metal panels yet. So we'll be working through that in the next couple of months, but the outside's, it's getting there. So next video should have sidewalks and stuff poured on front. Any questions on Sunnyside? Sorry. Okay. I'll jump to Riley Northlake then. So Riley Northlake, as far as the addition goes, oh, go ahead, Joe. We'll just play the video and then I'll go from there. So you can see the additions coming along. That's the gymnasium, that the walls are full height on. We're continuing to progress to the south, I guess, of the moving along the cafeteria and over building closer to north. So all the foundation walls are in. The last of the concrete floors was last week. So everything foundation-wise is in, and now we're progressing with load bearing masonry. And steel is coming August 18th, be the next delivery of steel. And that'll be the main structure of the rest of the addition. So that'll continue along. Inside the old Riley Gymnasium and the old music band rooms, which we consider a part of the addition, right? This heavy renovation. We've got new ductwork hung in there. We've re-supported or stiffened the roof structure for the load of the new rooftop units that are going to go on there. We've built the curb for the RTU3, which will be set later this fall, and gotten all the ductwork done above the ceiling for that. So that's kind of where we're at on the addition. We're preparing to we're actually doing some underground plumbing work now, and preparing to start pouring some of the concrete slabs in addition ahead of steel, just to get some of that on. There's certain areas we can pour in certain. It's kind of the addition in a nutshell. Riley, the renovations are full swing. Right, we got 2.5 weeks left. We set our rooftop unit number 1 and number 2 last week. So we set one early last week and RT2 on Friday. So those are currently being wired, currently having control work done to them. And we're endeavoring to have at least one of them running by the end of this week, and then probably one of them next week. That's the way it's looking right now. But got all the ductwork connections today, finishing the piping connections. We'll start the flushing and filling with the hydraulic heating and the chilled water systems this week. Hopefully have that done by so we'll get those running. That's the bulk of the heavy mechanical work. We are doing finishes. We have ceilings in the entire second floor of Riley. We've got ceiling rated in the first floor of Riley, ceilings in the second and part of the first floor of North Lake now, as well. So some big pushes the last couple of weekends to get ceiling grid in. We're putting light fixtures in, supply air, return air grills, all the trim out of the ceilings to try and get those put back together. We've done a lot of prep work for flooring. We had to do a moisture mitigation process on the first floor of both buildings, and we'll have to do it on the basement of North Lake. We anticipated that with the bid, so that was included in their bids. But it is a time, it takes a lot of time to do it, and you got to vacate the area or other work going on. So we've got the moisture mitigation on the first floor of both buildings done, and now we're trying to get the conditions right in the buildings to actually install the flooring. So flooring is on site. It's just a matter of getting the conditions right. And it would be an all-out spring to finish with that. I've told you guys about the casework delays that we have. So right now we're early September. We're getting casework for Friday and September for North. So we'll do that in the off hours. We'll install on second shift and on Saturdays, and on any vacation or break days you guys have. Anticipated installation date duration is about 3 to 4 weeks for everything. So we're working through that. Ceramic tile in the bathrooms is going in. Start trimming plumbing fixtures, installing new fixtures. Probably by the end of the week here. Just a sprint to the finish as the renovations always are. So it will be right to the end. Furniture scheduled for August 10th to start showing up for both buildings. And we have final cleaning happening that week as well as construction. So start moving stuff back into the classrooms, preparing for the return to school.
So what's the timeline? I'll leave it with Raleigh and Raleigh and
For the renovations, we'll be done before the kids come on the 23rd.
you overseeing that project, right? What kind of challenge are you seeing?
As of right now, as Jeremy mentioned, we're already doing basically 6. The units are on, making sure that we get the conditions correctly. That's been one of the issues we have such a long drawn out process. That also adds to it. Units that were being delivered, a lot of these finishes depend on basically getting to a specific range of controlled environment. So we received our TUs 1, 2, and 3 later than we originally anticipated. We have a team in place and we have everybody getting to do. So yes, those units and controlling the temperatures that are
Questions for either one of you? Gentlemen?
A lot of work to be done, but we'll be ready. So,
The target date for teachers to get back in the building is the 17th. And so we had to back that up a little bit. Teachers can come back into the district next Monday, the 8th. But for Raleigh and North Lake, the staff understands, I've spoken with the principals. In order for Ricardo and Jeremy to finish what they need to do, and a big part of it is that deep cleaning to make sure that the classrooms are ready to receive the children. And I think, Ricardo, you're anticipating we're going to have air conditioning in more buildings as well. That's huge.
We're still targeting getting right around the holidays.
Yeah, and then the demolition of Sunnyside MacArthur sometime in the April timeframe.
we'll start as soon as it's cleared out. The abatement process will start January. Start following down with that. The parking lots and fields completed. It's June.
But I'm really glad you brought that up, because we were talking a little bit last, just in different meetings. There are a lot of families and parents who would like to come back to Sunnyside and MacArthur and see it one last time. And we were thinking if we could time it right, do a farewell walk through Sunnyside MacArthur with then a walk right into the brand new MacArthur Sunnyside, all in one evening. We were thinking about that, if we could make that work. So I just thought about that.
What do you think? Is that possible? That's cool.
I'm sure,
You like to walk.
yeah, I'm sure. See a reason why not. When would you be targeting that?
I think that would be right around when we, either right when we're getting ready to go to winter break or right when we come back. So we'll have to work on scheduling of that.
We'll find some more. Yeah.
But very exciting, very exciting.
Any other questions on the progress?
Good.
Okay, thank you. All right, change orders will be up next, I guess. So I have a lot for you tonight. I kind of prepped you for this last month, hopefully. And if this month is going to be a big one, and unfortunately, it's not a big one in the fun way of the credits like we've had the last few months. But we've worked through, Ricardo has worked hard to get through a lot of these changes that we've had to make. It's still stemming out and cleaning up things from the value engineering process, getting everything straightened up. So a lot of this is regarding Riley and Northlake, although I do have several for Sunnyside and Parker as well. But it's a big cleanup, and hopefully you can see by the colored sheet, there's not a lot of stuff in yellow, which is pending stuff we're still working on. So we're cleaning up a lot this month here. You can see Joe's got it up on the screen now. So there's just a few yellow items in here yet that we're working on. But the total request for tonight is going to be for Sunnyside and Parker is going to be $111,080, and then the changes for Riley Northlake total up to $788,313. I'll walk you up through what all of those are and what the dollar amounts are on those. And as always, feel free to stop me and ask questions. Wait. So starting off with Sunnyside and MacArthur, change order 65 relates to PR 40. This is the change that came up quite some time ago. There was a wood plank material specified for on the walls and common learning areas, a few other select locations throughout the building. It's an accent wall. When we received the sample, or when the contractor received the sample of the material, it sat on in their office, and it became apparent quickly that it wasn't a very stable material, especially for different climates and buildings. As far as, when you're running air conditioning, it's not humid in your buildings, but if you shut things down or turn things back for the summer, the humidity goes up, the temperature goes up. So this wood sample worked pretty bad in their office. So we kind of went back to the drawing board on it. Jesslyn and the Wool team looked for some alternate materials. We think we've come up with a better solution. It's a fiber reinforced paneling, about a 16 to an 8-inch thick. It's very cleanable. It's a flat surface, doesn't have any grooves or texture to it necessarily, but it is a more labor intensive installation process. The material is only a couple $1,000 more for the whole building, but the installation is 4x8 sheets that have to be cut versus smaller tiles of wood that just kind of go together like puzzle pieces on the wall. So this does result in a added cost of $33,333. But like I said, it's pretty extensive throughout the building. There's 120 sheets of it, 4x8 sheets. Just we did estimation of how much square footage you're talking about. So we think it's a better long-term solution. It's stable. It allows it, it's not gonna move and work with the buildings. And it's very durable as far as that's what we're using it for, is wall protection. Right? So you're not having dinged up walls, have to touch up and repaint all these areas.
Who spec the original?
What's that?
Who spec the original?
It was part of the wall specification.
What was their response?
So to give the district flexibility and turn down things in the summer, temper the humidity and air conditioning, we just felt as a group, as a collective decision, that the wood is probably a risk. We didn't want the instability of the wood stretching and breathing and creating problems with after the installations over. And quite recently, we've done this on learning stairs and some other applications, and we're finding that the wood stability just isn't matching up with the districts decided to temper down their humidification or their air conditioning. That wood starts to move and it starts to buckle and splinter a little bit. So this seemed like a good opportunity to bring in something that still has that warmth, because where the wood was specified was at classroom entrances, it's giving a little splash of water warmth in those areas. We didn't want to go back to just painting those walls and having the corner guards. We wanted something that still brought that same feel, but much more durably. So that's why we presented the case to go with something that was more stable, and it's got a wood appearance, but it's in essence, it's like a plastic.
So the original spec product, all of that in the market, that's what it's.
We've been using woods in facilities all the time. It's just a natural wood product.
But this specific one that was,
The one that we're replacing
Yeah.
with? Oh,
well, the original one.
the original one was just a hardwood planking system, so it's pretty common. The specification for it is, it's not necessarily just a product, it's just a wood planking system, so it's not a manufacturer's that. I mean, if we had confidence that the district was going to run the building at a certain point year round, we would have less concern. But I think what flagged is seeing the actual submittal panel work in the office of the installer, raised red flags. We think we should rethink.
I guess my question is going towards who spec for a specific reason that that was a product. that we could use. So,
Because we've had success with it in those applications. It just, we rethought it as we got into the process and after we saw the sample. But we've got wood in other school buildings. Some of them maybe have more year-round functions in them, so they don't take the humidification down in the summertime. We didn't want to take the risk here because we understood that's a possibility.
and the new solution that you're proposing of this change order, what's the history with that?
This is a really durable product. You'll see it in hospital applications and things like that with wall panels. So it still has a little bit of the warmth of the wood appearance, but it's got the durability of, you'll see it. It's almost like a fiberglass reinforced panel system with trim pieces and corner connections. So you're also protecting those corner joints. So it's done all the time. We probably use it less in schools, but we're moving towards that now. We've had some issues with the system in school buildings, just because they don't have that year-round necessary year-round ability of the environment. That's it. Next question.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, the next one is change order 66 then. This relates to PR 41. Couple of small electrical receptacle location changes, but the bulk of the cost here was just adding a dedicated circuit for a microwave in one of the workrooms. So this resulted in $1,269. The next one's change order 67. This is a result of the storm damage that we had back on June 13th. So we talked about that last month, and we were working, we had estimated values. We now have all the final costs from the contractors and the damage that was done. So we had a relief hood that was ripped off the building, tumbled across the roof, did some damage to the roof. The curb that roof relief hood is mounted to, the wooden nailer blocking was ripped out of the curb, so that curb needs to be replaced. That has to be cut back out of the roof. And so that is included in this. And then the other piece of the damage was the music room walls, the 26-foot tall studs that were blown down, mangled, most of those, and had to be replaced. So
What insurance provisions do we have for stuff?
So we have, on the project, with builder's risk insurance, and we have already initiated a claim on that,
Okay. So that will cover.
plus the deductible. On builder's risk, it's $50,000.
So we're gonna, all costs, not just this one. Not just the 65,000.
that's all of it.
That's all.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, 65,209 is the full cost.
What was that looking?
50,000.
Roger check? Okay,
You drop it off tomorrow.
yes.
We'll open the trunk. Send it in the trunk.
So when we receive the reimbursement for the insurance, we'll deposit to offset.
The next one then is change order 68. This is actually a mistake I made last month in prepping for board meeting of PR 38. Realized I used outdated pricing from one of the contractors. I used a higher number, but negotiated a lower number and didn't pass that along. So this is one of the good pieces of news that I have for you. This is a $4,861 just to get the PR 38 cost back where it should have been. The next one, change order 69, is relating to PR 43. And this is for a second chilled water expansion tank. So there was an estimated volume based on the original design that was done, volume of the system. And once we had everything coordinated, piped in the field, they filled the system with water, they metered the water going in, so they know the actual volume of the system. It came back. Once we knew that volume, reran the calculations, and the pressures were higher than everybody liked to see. So we, mechanical contractor here went submitted an RFI, saying what the pressures were, what the volumes were. Full team reviewed that, and it was determined we needed to add a second expansion. So the cost there is $9,707. The last one for Sunnyside with Parker that I have is a change order that incorporates SI 25. There's painting clarifications throughout the building. The classrooms, there's accent color on the teaching wrap, if you will, that was intended to be added. There was 2 paint colors called out there, but no details as far as whether it was a stripe or a 50-50 split, top, bottom, side to side. So we worked with the painting contractor and came up with what I feel is a reasonable settlement on that. There's something like 52 rooms, I believe it is, that we're doing this accent stripe. The cost that here, whatever we're requesting is an add of $6,423. We started at about 10 grand. So that's with layout and taking time for those quotes. Right, those are the change orders for Sunnyside and Parker. O'Reilly Northlake then, start off with change order 71. This dates back to PR 71, PR 7, sorry. And this is, the two big items here is the gas line relocation. You guys remember us talking about that, talked about that a lot, right? So the relocation work inside the building that we had to do. We did most of that time and material with the contractor to expedite that. And we worked through spring break that was to get that done. So that's the cost associated with that in there. The really big cost in this one is the transformer work that has to be done with ComEd. So both Riley and Northlake need their ComEd transformers upgraded. ComEd is going to change out the transformers, but the existing pads and locations do not work. So the transformers are getting bigger where the existing transformers are. They put the new one there, the clearances are not maintained. The pad size needs to grow, so we actually have to move the location. So the associated work with that is about 90 grand worth of this cost.
So the transformers are being upgraded because of the demand.
Even prior,
Yeah, we were at max, we were over max.
I think Northlake's was at 140%, something like that. Well over both of them were. So, and then obviously taking into account the new roads, all the new equipment.
The gas line relocation, that's a storage area that we have here, part of the relocation.
That's the one. The situation over there was it was coming across the field, running right through the addition, so we had to reroute it. So NICOR did their portion, but we had to come in at a different entry point to the building. Possible. So that's the bulk of this cost. We are requesting this as a not to exceed price. There are some door frame and hardware updates in this one as well. The not to exceed request here is $151,030. Like I said, about $120,000 of that cost is the gas and the electrical. Right. The next one is change order 72, relates to PR8. This is framing details, some mechanical updates, some access panels that were needed for plumbing equipment, and then some updates to storefront framing as well. So we are requesting this again as a not to exceed value. So some of these we've gotten to, we have the worst case scenario. We've gotten everybody to respond to the pricing. And it's a matter of Ricardo's going back, and there's maybe 1 out of 15 contractors that we feel like the price is maybe a little higher. There's a little wiggle room that we're trying to get out of it. And working on that, but we don't want to hold up paying the other 14 contractors or authorizing them to move forward with the work, especially given the nature of the project, right? So that's why we're doing these not to exceeds, and you'll see several of them tonight. So the value here, requested value is $20,998. Next one's change order 73, relates to PR9. This is for rooftop units 3 and 4, which serves the existing, or will serve the existing gymnasium at Riley and the new gymnasium at Forest. Yeah, the new cafeteria. Thank you. Again, stuff we talked about so many different ones. So the existing gym and the cafeteria, they needed curbs to be built because the roof structure is sloped. Right? And the slope structure that you see from the street on the roof is not the structural part. Flat roof beneath the slope. So the curbs that had to go onto the building had to extend all the way down to the flat structure, the original structure. They had to be cold form framing. So when you frame the walls, they could be your traditional rooftop unit curb, but you just kind of drop in place, fast down and set on top of it. So
That wasn't picked up in the design phase. We were gonna change out rooftop frame, all right, for so.
Part of this, but we can face it.
we moved it, but either way, we had to do this framing.
So,
We moved it to allow the chillers to stay on Riley and functioning this fall yet, because with the addition behind, because of NICOR, we couldn't get the new chillers set on the addition that feed. Right.
And that roof condition that you talked about is something that is in a few obscure pictures, but we don't have good existing or as-built drawings of. So really digging into the field conditions is something that got opened up and really explored in construction.
So the costs here, we're working with the framing contractor, we're actually tracking their time to verify that what they quoted is fair. But the cost here is $108,823. One of those two units is already the curves. Our end units.
Is that the only, so how was that? Bid, or how did we compare it?
What's that?
Or how did we validate that cost?
Well, I mean, we have a breakdown of labor and material, right? So looking at it as far as how many guys is it going to take to frame those curves? Carpenters to frame them and sheet it, cut the roof open, put the roof back around them. So we looked at it as what will it take? We talked through it, they quantified it in hours, and then we're tracking if it was fair. It basically came down to 4 guys for a week to frame it. The structure sites, detailing calculations.
Just thinking of a project that curb installed St. Joseph, Missouri.
And these are almost 6 foot tall by the time they get through. Change order 74 that relates to PR10. There's some building steel adjustments. And that was kind of we think it was left behind. Here we had done a bid alternate to see what the cost savings was if we needed to go to plastic laminate rather than solid surface countertops. Once we got to Riley Northlake, we had determined that the value, that savings wasn't enough for the lesser quality material that you get with a solid surface countertop. And so we intended to take that out, and there were a few rooms where that note got left behind in the drawings. And so we ended up with plastic laminate countertops. So that's getting rid of those, giving it a solid surface. A plastic laminate has some edge banding on it that humidity can do it. People rub it up against that edge, it catches on your shirt. And next thing you know, it's peeling off. It's a sharp edge. It's really not a durable product. And so you don't have that in this building. So that's getting rid of this, or getting rid of that. And then the other big piece of this one is the floor sinks. The plumbing inspector had the same issue here. The plumbing inspector requires floor sinks to be used rather than like an open site drain, basically a pipe stuck through the floor to run condensate drains for the kitchen equipment. So there were floor sinks that had to be, or pub drains is what they're called, that had to be changed to floor sinks. So that is a code-driven inspector, IPH inspector driven change. So the total here on 74 is $45,229. 75 then is PR12. This is some revised with piping conflicts or routing conflicts. So we revised the routing of the mechanical piping to work around the ceilings. That actually ended up, with less pipe labor. So we got a credit of $4,305 here. Change order 76 then is incorporates PR14. This is the rerouted water line or water service to Northlake Middle School. So we had a lot of difficulty working with the village of Northlake, and we couldn't they couldn't find it, we couldn't find the existing water main to the east of North Lake. So we had a lot of exploration time in there that 3 days of exploring, digging, potholing with the back truck, looking for the water main. We finally found it was almost 11 feet down. And we did get tied into it. So the water service is restored and tested to North Lake, but that ate up some costs. Where we ended up finding it was a shorter run on the outside of the building, but a longer run on the inside. Long story short, it did end up in a credit of $4,916. Change order 77 then, this is an existing conditions item. And so part of the goal of this project, the renovations at Private Northway, is our understanding is to get rid of all the asbestos containing materials within the building. So when we started doing demolition and ripped the ceilings out of the old showers in the basement at North Lake, we realized that there was asbestos insulation on old galvanized piping in all those shower walls. So we consulted with the district team here. Everybody felt it was the best decision to go ahead and do the additional demolition, get that material out of the building so those spaces are clean. At the end of the day, they're getting turned into storage rooms. So we're doing the minimal finishes to make those rooms safe and functional as a storage room. They'll put them back so that there's no hazards in those. So we've got a cost estimate here of $20,000 now to exceed. We're tracking well against that. So I hope to have a good update for you next month with some savings there. Oh. Sorry, it's not.
Okay, sorry, I was gonna.
Here. The next one's change order 78, which arose again from existing conditions. So again, working in the boiler room with Riley, we realized that there was a section of galvanized piping along with the abatement. A big portion of this project is getting rid of the old galvanized water piping in the building. There was a section left in the boiler rooms. It was insulated until we tore the insulation off to find the size of that tie-in. You couldn't tell it was galvanized pipe. So that cost here to demo that is a not to exceed cost of $29,155. It is 2-inch pipe, 2-inch. It has to be 2-inch copper, so it is large diameter pipe. That work is almost done, and then it'll be re-insulated. So that'll be done and out of our way before the start of school as well. Change order 79 then incorporates mechanical testing and balancing scope for the project. So there was a bit of a snafu, I'll call it, with the bid documents there. And they just didn't get updated, I think, on the commissioning, the testing and balancing spec. For this building, it's included in the mechanical contract. Over there, it was intended that it was included in the mechanical contract, but the spec read as it was by owner. So we again consulted with the district team here and felt that it's always best in our opinion for the mechanical contractor to hold that contract as a sum to them. And so the cost here is something you didn't pay for on bid day, you would have paid for it on bid day if we had it written correctly. But we've got a not to exceed cost of $51,954. This is for the air and the water balancing in schools to make sure everything's running appropriately. However, Ricardo has worked that price down. That final number is going to be about $43,000. $44,331. So that'll be the number you see next month in an update. But for tonight, for approval process, it's going to be $51,954.
Keep controlling costs.
The next one then is change order 80. This incorporates the replacement of groundwater sump pumps and the sewage ejector pumps. So Dale's talking with the insurance company on this one. The pumps, there's 2 pumps, sewage pumps, and 2 groundwater sump pumps in the basement in North Lake. When the power went out, the storms hit on June 13th. That basement had about 3 inches of water in it. There's a lot of remediation and dry out work that's been going on. We've done a lot of, we've torn most of it out anyways. So the last thing, these pumps hung on until a couple of weeks ago, and the sump pumps died. Those pumps are mounted about maybe 4 inches off the floor. But they are from 1970 and 1971. So they've lived a good life. And they finally let go. The sump pumps went first. We realized that we weren't getting any water out of the basement of North Lake with temporary pumps in place, pumping water to keep it dry right now. And then about a week later, the ejector pumps, the sewage ejector pumps, also malfunctioned. Different part, but both of them, the pumps are so old that you can't get parts for them. And so they need replacement. They've just reached the end of the life. So to replace all 4 pumps, that cost us $57,872. Those pumps have been ordered. They were 4-week lead time. This was 2 weeks. I think we're in our 2nd week here, and we are desperately hoping they are ready and here for service. Because we have, like I said, we have temporary pumps in place right now. So we are checking on that, or we are tracking on that to have that done. The next one is change order 81. This was another existing condition that came to us as a surprise to all of us, I believe. And that when we started demoing the ceilings on the 2nd floor of the Lake and North Lake, the ceiling construction gave the appearance of a 1 foot by 1 foot glue up ceiling tile. What was actually there was sound rated ceilings that I believe we determined were put in the late 90s as a part of the
Sounds condition project.
So those ceilings consisted of a 1 by 1 glue up tile on the face, 2 layers of 5/8 drywall behind that, metal framing, and then 4 inches of rock wool insulation that was on top of that. To further complicate the process, the soffits around all the ductwork were hung off of that. And the ductwork was actually hung off of those ceilings because those ceilings were hung on vibration isolators. So we started demoing the ceilings. Obviously, there's a lot more work to take all of that out than a typical tile ceiling. There's 40 sometimes. So Ricardo's been working hard on this one. He's put a lot of effort into trying to get this to the best price we can. Initially, the demo contractor wanted 24 man hours extra for each room. We've worked that down to 16, which I think is fair. But there's a lot of rooms and a lot of spaces to cover. So not only that, but when we started taking the ceilings out and those soffits were hung from there, we had soffits that started to come down because there was nothing left supporting them. The ductwork was also hung from them. So we had to go in and build temporary walls to support the soffits so that we didn't have to completely demolish them. Cut select holes, we rehung the ductwork structure as it should be, then patched up the soffits, got rid of the temporary walls, and we're putting our new ceilings in. So it's been a lot of work. We have a $200,000 not to exceed request on this. So this will take us to this summer, and it also projects next summer. We still have to do this in a lot of spaces. Anywhere on the 2nd floor that had a ceiling in it has this type of ceiling in it in both buildings. So one of the biggest unknowns working with the demolition contractors that in North Lake, the music and band rooms have really high ceilings. And so we're just working through logistics of how to tear those down. It feels like it's a lot more hours than we feel like. That's why we're doing not to exceed. We've come to an agreement on the typical rooms of what the labor is, and we've agreed that we'll track those on the time and material basis to get the fair value. So we're asking for this. We're going to issue change orders in increments as we track the work so we get people paid for the work they're doing, right? Not stringing them along, but we'll hold on to the value and not disperse that so they're not getting paid on next year's work.
So do we have to work outside of the sound of eight still in those classes?
No, so we reached out to Mr. Staple, who was here during that project. And we asked if there had been any complaints about noise or anything because of the complaints, and he said there weren't any complaints. And the project actually was an opportunity for the district to have the air conditioning installed. And so when this first came up, we informed President Hightower about it, and then we reached out to Mr. Sabo, got some, reached out to Mr. Hightower for some historical information as well, as giving him an update on where we were at. And then went back to Mr. Sabo for some historical information, and that was something that we had.
The original project was probably O'Hare and Mosby.
No, I remember that, I remember there.
That was all public. Now I think we should cover by that.
They did have supervision of this project. We have no supervision of this project because of that, but he's sharing these conditions.
From back in.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we did look at, we actually stopped tearing out the ceilings for a period of time, right? And we looked at, could we just say, sleep in place? The problem we ran into was we couldn't get our light fixtures in, there wasn't enough light. They were recessed light fixtures, but then also, if you remember, we're putting fire protection sprinkler system in both buildings. So by the time we brought all that piping in the rooms, our new ceilings were gonna be at 7 foot full. So it's made the decision to.
So these were existing conditions that you were, because of the material in front of the house.
You couldn't see.
For the two large ceiling rooms, where you look at scaffolding.
And we were before, so part of that's what we're working through with him is he doesn't need to set up a scaffold if we're gonna set up a scaffold for the group to use. So we had been contemplating on how do we get everybody to access their work anyways, so. Because they both have, the one of them has a tiered floor, so you can't necessarily try to lift in there without taking that.
I would point interest on that, the addition that happened at Riley did not have any sound emergency ceiling, just had a normal emergency ceiling, so.
It's 2,000. So we spent a little bit of time investigating, making sure that you didn't have sound issues in those spaces currently, and felt comfortable moving forward with a more traditional system.
But that's the addition that's settled.
It is
Well, there's other
Settling
surprises, but
doesn't
at least
impact the noise.
we're, yeah, investigating that. I will say too that the roof this sloped roof that is kind of a fake roof on that is probably also providing some sound attenuation that came sometime after that.
That's a big one. I have two more. Change order 82. This is a cost to replace the boiler pumps in Riley. So those pumps are nearing the end of their life. They're still functioning at this time, but part of the new design, the new process, there were a couple of recirculation pumps that were designed to be removed. And taking a second look at the system, the existing boiler pumps need to be upsized to maintain the correct flow and circulation to avoid any freezing or potential for freezing of the units. So those pumps, the cost to replace those two pumps is $50,298. I don't know if you heard those pumps, but they're pretty.
Yeah, well, I believe that we built them along the way, one is we just rebuilt this year.
So we are moving forward with those as well. We do have those on board just because they were available. And we didn't want to get into, we were told if we didn't put those on hold for us, it was a 10-week lead time. We get into winter, we didn't want to take the chances with the new units and having potentially freeze something out of it. That's that one. And change order 83 is the last one. Another existing condition here, we added a new boiler in the basement at North Lake. We currently have 3. We added a 4th. The flue for the exhaust for the boiler was supposed to go up out through the wall and up to the addition. We started looking at that, the route that we had to take, we had a lot of 90-degree elbows. So a fan was going to be necessary to be added. The other complication that we didn't really foresee was the routing of that, and it comes up through the kitchen, right? So we would have to tear the ceilings of the kitchen out, a bunch of soffits in the cafeteria out all this summer, and then put that back because that's not being renovated this summer and turning into this new space. So we would have spent probably about $10,000 in temporary rework, all to just go and tear down that summer. So we got looking at the existing chimney where the existing boilers vent out through. And it was determined that there's not actually a liner in the chimney. So a couple of issues there, that's not code compliant anymore, to not have a liner in the chimney. So your existing boilers, the way they're venting, which was always fine. But now that chimney is actually going to be partially inside the building because it's on the side of the building where we're connecting the addition to. So the bottom 15 feet of that chimney is going to be within the addition. So again, we talked on this one. There were 2 options. There was a $15,000 option to just add a fan and go with the route that was identified in the documents, or we could bring that chimney up to code, and by putting a liner in there, and then we could put the fan on and combine the new boiler into that chimney, and utilize that for all 4 boilers. So I think that was the direction amongst the team that everyone felt most comfortable with. Again, that brings the chimney up to code. That is a cost of $62,175. Lots of existing conditions, lots of fun with renovations as I hope you guys was coming. But yeah, I think we've discovered a lot this summer. I know that's a lot of change orders, not necessarily the best news to hear. But I think as you look at the contingency, we're still in good shape. We're a long ways into this project. We still have 90% of contingency left. There's about $150,000 in estimated pending change orders that we're working through. And actually, as I look through that, $53,000 of that we eliminated. So there's really about $100,000 pending change orders that we're working on today actively. On top of those not to exceeds that I'll then come back to you next month with those lines highlighted in orange and tell you what the actual numbers for 2 months from now, whatever they shape out.
No, I think a lot of the pastors were right. It is, it's, 50+ years. I've encountered that all the time. So, and we're doing another construction last month with that. My one comment will be for that $200,000 curve. $100,000 curve. Keep an eye there, because I did a quick back in that in math, and I had to see what it looks like. The guys are out there on the phone for half hour. I don't need to be here.
I got you.
What did it build? 200 now? 110.
So
That's even more accessible than I was calculating 200.
yep, we'll keep an eye on.
There's one that Jeremy went through is that test and balance number that we do it both ways. Sometimes we put it in a contract bid, sometimes we do it in a third party. So we have third party commissioning on this building and on Riley North Lake. That third party commissioning number, the budget for that has quite a bit of room in it. We've already bought that out from third party. So there's room in that budget that could help offset putting it back into the contract bid here. I think
There's about $200,000 more. And that's spent, right? That cost is now known.
offset that.
Well, board's point of view, really appreciate you very fast control this cost. That's always we start this project. Pot of money. That's more than that. We really appreciate it. Anything we can say, we want to say.
Yeah, no. If you bring it in the car, you get the new transmission and the process. Like up against the board, just.
Okay, let's go. It's okay. You have any questions?
Yeah, sure.
Sosa. Be back, relax. Space.
No questions.
Pass.
I'm good.
Mr. Jackson. Very good.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other updates for the facilities committee?
And we report on these to the
Yes, they'll be presented in my portion of the agenda for your attention.
Well, once again, you guys are welcome to stay for our regular board meeting. You're always welcome. Yeah, yes. We really appreciate your help. Stay up there.
Thank you. Ricardo, thank you. Jesselyn, Dan.
I'll call to order the regular board meeting. Mayor, roll call please.
Chavez.
Here.
Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Mason. Mora.
Here.
O'Connell. Sosa.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy started.
Okay, board participation. Rick, Mr. Byrne.
There's no questions.
Yes, that the board accept the written correspondence of
The motion? Mr. Jackson? Roll call please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then there was no public.
No public comment, okay. For any consideration of all business, that accept them as written. Motion. Mr. Sosa. Mr. Mason. Roll call please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Any reports?
No old business.
Okay.
Old business.
No business, okay.
Yes, the suggestion, sorry. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the accounts of claims payable authorization as presented. And there were no questions.
Get a motion. Ms. O'Connell. Ms. Sosa. Roll call please.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Motion carried.
The monthly billing rental report included in your packet for your review, and this is for informational purposes only.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, get a motion to go into closed session. We got a couple items to discuss in closed session, right? Okay, which one in closed session? Mr. Jackson? And Ms. O'Connell.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried into closed session.
Mr. Travis, could you stay? This is nice. Mr. Should I call her on my cell phone?
think calling her would be best.
Mrs. Moore, I'm gonna call, participate in closed session.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, we call the record report, be back in, back on please. Okay, on the new business, board reports. You want to have reports? Please come.
I have a page one. I went to the special meeting on the 30th. That was the end of the year meeting for PACE. We do that once a year. And we approved all the bills and we approved some contractual agreements. And the July meeting, I did not go. Okay, so our next meeting is in August on Wednesday, the 17th at 7 p.m.
Thanks, Becky. We had, of course, our facility meetings are right before this one, and all the minutes from the previous facility meeting is part of your packet. Okay, any other board member have meetings? Mrs. West, Mrs. Jackson? No. Mrs. Sosa? No. That's it. All right. Superintendent report.
Please see the letters of resignation as shown under the correspondence for this meeting. We ask that the board accept the resignation of the following personnel: Amanda Moscoso, physical education teacher, MacArthur Middle School, effective July 7th, 2022. Jennifer Reeder, science teacher at MacArthur Middle School, effective July 14th, 2022. Amber Doherty, art teacher at Sunnyside and Jefferson School, effective July 19th, 2022. Jeffrey Gafu, cross-categorical teacher, Riley, effective July 20th, 2022. Peter Zubinski, 8th grade teacher, Northlake, effective July 21, 2022. And Kelly Nelson, Spanish teacher, Northlake, effective July 22nd, 2022.
Okay, the motion, Mr. O'Connell. And Mr. Jackson, roll call please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the board refuse to concur with the resignation of the following personnel as discussed in closed session. That's Julianne Zelinsky and Fotini Sakaris.
Motion. Mr. Jackson, Mr. O'Connell, roll call please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I need to read the resolution. Whereas Julianne Zielinski is a teacher employed by the Board of Education. Whereas Julianne Zielinski tendered their resignation to the school district on July 27th, 2022, in order to accept another teaching assignment without obtaining the concurrence of the board or serving at least 30 days written notice upon the secretary of the board. Whereas pursuant to the school district's calendar, the first day of work for its teachers during the 2022-2023 school term is August 22nd, 2022. The Board of Education is committed to developing and using a knowledgeable and dedicated staff to serve the needs of its children and fulfill its mission to serve as a partner in developing and empowering lifelong learners to celebrate diversity, embrace risk-taking, and become leaders in the global community. Whereas teachers who resign from the school district during the school year in order to accept another teaching assignment adversely affect the instruction of students. Whereas teacher resignations during the school term in order to accept other teaching assignments are actions that are contrary to the best interests of the board, the school district, the students, and the staff. Whereas section 24-14 of the Illinois School Code provides that a teacher who has entered into contractual continued service, tenure, may resign at any time by obtaining concurrence of the board or by serving at least 30 days written notice upon the secretary of the board. Whereas 24-14 of the Illinois School Code further provides that no teacher may resign during the school term without the concurrence of the board in order to accept another teaching assignment. Whereas any teacher who does not resign in accordance with section 24-14 of the Illinois School Code may be referred by the board to the state superintendent of education. Whereas if the state superintendent or their designee finds that a teacher resigned during the school term without the concurrence of the board and without serving at least 30 days written notice upon the secretary of the board, the state superintendent must suspend the teacher's license for 1 calendar year. Whereas if the state superintendent or their designee finds that a teacher resigned during the school term without the concurrence of the board to accept another teaching assignment, the state superintendent must suspend the teacher's license for 1 year. Now be it resolved by the Board of Education of Berkeley School District 87 that the board finds that all of the foregoing recitals contained in this resolution are full, true, and correct. The board refuses to concur with the resignation of Julianne Zielinski as a teacher and employee of the school district. Julianne Zielinski may be referred by the board to the state superintendent of education for further proceedings in accordance with section 24-14 of the Illinois School Code. If any section, clause, or provision of this resolution shall be held to be invalid or unenforceable for any reason, the invalidity or unenforceability of that section, paragraph, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this resolution. This resolution shall be in full force and effect forthwith upon its adoption and shall supersede all prior resolutions or portions thereof that are inconsistent with this resolution. So we ask that the Board of Education agrees to not accept the resignation of Julianne Zielinski.
Motion. Mr. Chavez, Ms. O'Connor. Roll call, please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Whereas Fotini Sakaris, a teacher employed by the Board of Education, tendered their resignation to the school district on August 1st, 2022, dated August 21st, 2022, in order to accept another teaching assignment without obtaining the concurrence of the board or serving at least 30 days written notice upon the secretary of the board. Whereas pursuant to the school district's calendar, the first day of work for its teachers during the 22-23 school term is August 22nd, 2022. Whereas the Board of Education is committed to developing and using a knowledgeable and dedicated staff to serve the needs of its children and fulfill its mission to serve as a partner in developing and empowering lifelong learners, to celebrate diversity, embrace risk-taking, and become leaders in the global community. Teachers who resign from the school district during the school year in order to accept another teaching assignment adversely affect the instruction of students. Teacher resignations during the school term in order to accept other teaching assignments are actions that are contrary to the best interest of the board, the school district, the students, and staff. Whereas section 2414 of the Illinois School Code provides that a teacher who has entered into contractual continued service tenure may resign at any time by obtaining concurrence of the board or by serving at least 30 days written notice upon the secretary of the board. Section 24-14 of the Illinois School Code provides that no teacher may resign during the school term without the concurrence of the board in order to accept another teaching assignment. Whereas any teacher who does not resign in accordance with 2414 of the Illinois School Code may be referred by the board of the state, by the board to the state superintendent of education. Whereas if the state superintendent or their designee finds that a teacher resigned during the school term without the concurrence of the board and without serving at least 30 days written notice upon the secretary of the board, the state superintendent must suspend the teacher's license for 1 calendar year. If the state superintendent or their designee finds that the teacher resigned during the school term without the concurrence of the board to accept another teaching assignment, the state superintendent must suspend the teacher's license for 1 calendar year. We ask that the Board of Education adopt a resolution that Fotini Sakaris, her resignation not be approved.
Motion. Mr. Sosa. Second. Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
Mason.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
The administration is recommending the reassignment of the following personnel: Elizabeth Johnson from cross-categorical to special education coordinator, Jefferson School and Whittier School. We ask that the Board of Education reassign Ms. Johnson as presented.
Motion. Ms. O'Connell. Second. Ms. Mason. Roll call, please.
Laura.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower. Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education approve the license leave of absence request as presented for Jennifer Joseph.
Motion. Ms. O'Connell. Mrs. Ray. Roll call, please.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The administration has interviewed the personnel shown below and is recommending employment. We ask that the Board of Education employ the following personnel: Laurel Shahir, Catherine Shanahan, pending employment paperwork, Anna Aviles, Angela Kripke, Sarah Hilliard, Cassandra Marshak, Jennifer Sabata, pending employment paperwork, Nicole LaSalle, pending employment paperwork, Kelly Schaefer, pending employment paperwork, Vesna Tanseva, pending employment paperwork, Julianne Islami, pending employment paperwork, Maggie Lawson, pending employment paperwork, Elizabeth Gardona, pending employment paperwork, Alan Polchow, pending employment paperwork, and Sarah Busa, pending employment paperwork.
The motion. Ms. Jackson, Ms. Mason, roll call please.
Sosa,
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education employ the following personnel: Jackie Skinner, cross-categorical teacher assistant, effective start of the 22-23 school year, and Dominic Hernandez, PM custodian at MacArthur Middle School, effective the start of the 22-23 school year.
Motion. Ms. O'Connell, Mr. Jackson, roll call please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
Take the first vote.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
For fundraisers, we ask that the Board of Education approve the following fundraisers as presented: Southside PTO, Amazon Smile.
Motion. Mr. Jackson, Ms. O'Connell, roll call.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education approve the amended district nurse contract as discussed in closed session.
That motion, Mr. Jackson, Mrs. Sosa, roll call please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We, in the spirit of making sure that we do everything we can for finding positions for next year, we have a suggested change in the name of the lunchroom supervisor position from lunchroom supervisor position to lunchroom monitor. We believe that changing the name of the lunchroom supervisor position to lunchroom monitor more accurately describes the position and will lead to more potential candidates for this position. Some of our candidates think that supervisor means they come in and supervise other staff, where actually it's monitoring the children. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education change the name of the lunchroom supervisor to lunchroom monitor as presented.
Motion. Ms. O'Connell. Mrs. Fisher-Boyd. Roll call please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then just a couple of things from my oral report. I wanted to mention that you have in front of you a draft with some placeholder amounts on it. This is our recommendation we would like to bring for action on August 29th for suggested positions for the upcoming school year. And so if you look at this, there is a few of them on the front page that have already been approved. So those are in there with real numbers that we anticipate. But if you go down on that page, this is called proposed additional positions for the 22-23 school year. I've been sending these in the weekly memo, but I wanted you to see it, and they'll be up for action on August 29th. But the first one, for example, is a behavior tech, and that is a position that will be covered by a grant. It is a one-year only grant-funded position, and the purpose of this position would be, and the purpose of the grant, is a response to COVID and readiness for school. As you know, we've spent a lot of effort the last few years having kids who were at pace coming here for their schooling. And this is to help with that transition. But also we are finding in the last couple of years, there are many children who never were in an actual on-site preschool or in a daycare. Many of the kids were actually at home. And so there are some needs for children to learn routines that this grant may help us with. So that is a grant-funded position. I just wanted to mention that. The one below that, under food service, is this would require a resolution because we currently don't have this position. But the last year, our food service supervisor and director of food service did a lot of substituting because we were short staffed. Where staff would call out sick from our food service department. So the suggested position is a floater position, similar to what we have as in the custodial team. We have a floater position that if needed, that person fills into one of the buildings. So that's the purpose of that recommendation. If you go to the next page, it's standardizing the assistant cook positions. And so that is for 2 staff. It is changing their hours. So that's really just informing you of that. Also, we have some custodial positions that are listed here. Now, these positions would not necessarily need to begin at the start of the school year, but Mr. White has done a lot of research on this, but there's going to be a point in December where we are moving to a larger building with more square footage. And there's a need not only for, if you notice, there's a position at Sunnyside, position at MacArthur, also Riley Northlake, because we're anticipating more space at Riley and Northlake. Also, Mr. White is finding that we currently have 2 maintenance staff, one in the daytime, one in the evening. And Mr. White, who is here, can speak to more of this. But what we're finding is the person during the daytime is basically doing real-time responding to things that are happening in the 7 facilities, the 6 schools, and here in this building. So it's hard to go work ahead on work orders. The person who does, we do have someone who does work orders at night, a PM maintenance person, but for one person, they're not able to stay on top of it. When we add on top of it larger spaces, which are also going to have, Mr. White, if I recall this, a lot of requirements that are going to be with the warranty that have to be maintained. And so, Dale, I'm not sure if you want to add anything yet. But.
Sure, realistically, 2 maintenance is not enough for 7 buildings. So we contract out that stuff. But that all comes at cost and time, right? So where nowadays, it's not easy just to call a contractor out and they show up the next day. So I have to wait so long. The goal is to add an additional mid shift so they can work with both mornings and evenings if there's bigger projects. So it could be 2-man jobs without having to move a lot of people around. Dayman is, like Dr. Sullivan says, mostly reactionary. He's reacting to emergency phone calls, leads, HVAC issues. So that's most of his time. And that only gives us one person in the evening. And the problem with that is, again, in the evening, access to parts, right? Whatever she picked up at Home Depot, whatever she opened, is where you can pick up the parts, unless you plan, farther than that. So that's the purpose of the extra.
And then there's one other position listed here, and that would require a resolution. And again, this would be next month, but the position is PM Facility Supervisor. And that's a position that Mr. White used to hold, but I believe back in 2016, that position was eliminated. And Mr. White then came over and became the Director of Facilities. And that position was restructured. It used to be an Assistant Superintendent position. And if we bring that position back, it would require a resolution to create a new position because it doesn't exist anymore. I believe the board voted in 2016 to eliminate it. And Mr. White can speak to this more, but with more staff, there's a need for supervision. Dale, do you want to talk about that?
That's correct. Most of our custodial staff works in the supervise, level. That's one portion of it. The other portion is the school district does not have another facility backup. You need to have someone else that has knowledge of all these different things. In case something was to happen. have somebody. Help out.
So, when I look at this, right now, as far as proposed positions, first three are already for good there. Fourth one is the one that's going to be funded through grant. Food service one is the shorter position. So basically, the main changes are happening in the custodial.
Oh, and then Mr. Chavez, I'm sorry, there was one more, which is the administrative assistant for EL. Now, when I talked to our attorney about this, we could go either way with having to do a resolution. But his suggestion is we probably should, because this position, I'm looking for someone, or we are looking for someone who's bilingual. And with all our administrative assistants here, we do not currently have that as a requirement, but it would be a requirement for this one. And that's to work with our director of English learning, because that's an area where we have had significant growth with our second language learners. And so that's the need for that position. And that would be funded out of our evidence-based funding for that position. So that's all of them that we've been discussing here.
Is that factored in here?
No, those numbers were placeholders. They're not complete yet. I'm going to have to get those updated for next month. Because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
See what Mr. Chavez was pointing to. This, the numbers we have here were the 3 positions that were approved in May. So this yellow section.
And that's my fault for not having that cleared up. I was trying to keep it all in one place. So we would know as a board what we're looking to approve for the upcoming school year. And these are brought up now because we've done a lot of discussion, fact finding, and Mr. White, I think we've talked about this too. Not all of these positions require starting immediately. But the new building is going to open, and so we have to prepare.
But my feedback on it, as far as the supervisor position, completely agree. How much staff are under?
I have right now 24.
Right. Direct reports. They direct reports.
Oh. Well, I mean, they're my custodial staff.
No, but I'm saying, if you validate them,
Oh, yes,
you have to supervise them.
yes. It's those.
You're their supervisor, and correct. That's excessive. We like to understand why we went that way. I remember the change. I'm trying to remember what the reasoning was behind it. I knew that we had some reorganization.
It's consolidation.
Yeah, but there was supposed to be other activities that were going to cover that supervision, which apparently have not taken place. So that was my understanding of the way how that was proposed. But regardless of that, so I'd like to understand that. I can go back in history on that, but I think it definitely is excessive. As far as the new staff, the custodians, provided a boilerplate response to why we would need to add more staff. I need to understand why. More in terms of its study, the custodial study. Because yes, we're adding more square footage, but is that more square footage more conference room type situations or meeting area type situations? We have more carpeting, we have less carpeting. You know, is that going to require more custodial type service? You know, so I want to understand, you know, why, and also understand, you know, what we have in terms of current classroom amount to what the new classroom amount this is going to be. So, in order for me to be able to bring the increase in the custodian. Okay. And as far as the maintenance, yeah, I think for some of the buildings, it is substantial. One question I have: how is work tracked? You mentioned work.
Yeah, we use a facility tree for our order system. Okay, that's how it's tracked. So we can set it in that program.
Are they logging or timing?
There's a spot where there's a lot of the hours it takes.
Okay. Which is a supervisory report, that portion that I'm going to.
But we can print out monthly reports and how many court orders.
So yeah, that also towards the custodial study, and then also the before and after the increase. What does that mean? Again, supervisory, not, I would not argue against that. We need that. And not just the history of it. As far as bilingual education, I'd like to understand the origin. I mean, we seem to be adding positions every year for all these departments that we have that we support. I'd like to see the origin. Organization. So, understand, get to grasp in my mind, what do we have today? I don't need an origin for principals and teachers. We have an idea that's all driven by class size. But what do we have in terms of all the other support departments?
We can give that. We're having that is a program that has grown tremendously in the last few years, our English learning program. And so the requirements have increased by the state, testing has increased by the state, the frequency of these testing has increased by the state. And we need support for our director of English learning, and that would be the purpose of that. And it's a unique position though, because it is dealing with our families who are native Spanish speakers for the most part. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up with the resolution, that it would be someone who is bilingual to be able to help with that position.
The reporting requirements, the compliance requirements have increased significantly.
Just to clarify, sorry, a custodial study is, how much does it take? How many hours? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have all that information.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
This is too much. It's like.
Understood. You'll know, with your footprint, what you're going to have to cover in terms of labor hours. I want to understand that we've done a good review of that.
I'm guessing with the brand new building, the maintenance will be minimal.
Well, yeah, it will have mostly PMs, but we have more of it.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
less things are gonna break down.
Yeah, was it less work?
New building.
That's
You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, you give and take, so,
Right.
yeah, you're gonna have, you might end up more equipment, but at the same time, you're not gonna have any lot of repairs.
Right. That's my point.
So, preventive maintenance is gonna be critical, going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Then just briefly, you also have at your place the final strategic plan. So I'd also like to bring that for action next month. And this is helping inform our goals. This has a portrait of a scholar, portrait of an adult, a system portrait, and our goals for this upcoming 5-year plan include student growth and achievement, inclusive learning environment, high quality staff and leadership, connected community, equitable resources. And we had a group of students, parents, staff members, about 30 of us, worked April, May, and June on this process. And this again will be brought for action on August 29th. So that is the end of my report on this. Oh, if I could, just a quick reminder, the dedication for Dr. Smith, the playground, August 20th at Jefferson. I'll send reminders out again. That's from 10 to 11 a.m. at Jefferson School. That's for the dedication of the playground. The only other thing I was going to mention, because we have been talking about staff shortages, is we will find a way to have teachers in front of our kids. And if we have to do rescheduling of our buildings, and that's what we're going to do. But we will have teachers in front of our kids. So thank you for all the support.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr.? Good update, thank you. A lot of good information.
Okay.
Yes. First thing that I wanted to discuss was the Social Institute board proposal. Last couple of months, I've talked about our middle school social emotional learning program and curriculum, and complementing that with a program called the Social Institute. So the suggested motion before you is that the Board of Education approve the Social Institute proposal as presented.
Yes, vote on it.
Yes, please.
Get a motion. Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Sosa. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower. Jackson. Mason. Mora.
I,
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The other piece of information that's included in your packet tonight is our summer learning program, and that was for just informational purposes. We talked a lot about that in June, in conclusion of that. It was a great summer learning program. Our kids had a fantastic time. We had approximately 253 students enrolled in our June summer learning program. Mrs. Lewis and Mrs. Barr did a fantastic job leading that under the direction of Dr. Myzanek. So I just wanted to include that. I know she had a link in there for some photos and videos for the end of the year, if you want to take a look at those at your leisure.
How many students were at
253 were enrolled. So it was great. The whole district did an amazing job. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity. Our kids had a fantastic time. Yeah. Was. Had a great time. Yeah. And then the last thing I just wanted for my oral report is to just let you know that we are, our district e-learning plan will be up for renewal. It expires in November of 2022. So we will have begun the review process for our e-learning plan, and we'll be gathering feedback with and partnering with our bargaining members, BEA and the BEASS, and we will plan to bring this forward for your approval. Sure. Any questions for me?
Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Vance. Yeah.
Yes. The summary budget statement of position and student activity reports for the period ending June 30, 2022 are provided for your review. Next item is an annual item. It's the approval of the tentative budget for fiscal year 2023. That information explains more in depth, but there's a lot of information that we currently do not have, and we will continue to gather that information and hopefully get final numbers from the county, from the state, grants and final employment salary benefit information as we continue to hire people, and hopefully have more final numbers for the September final budget presentation. The adoption calendar, the tentative budget is presented for your approval this evening. The legal notice will be published in the newspaper on August 11th, 2022. And on the same date, we will display the tentative budget in the district office for public access. A public hearing will be held on September 26, 2022 at the start of the board meeting. On that same evening, the board will be asked to adopt the budget. And then following that, before the end of September, the budget will be filed with the county clerk and the township treasurer's office. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 2023 as presented, established Monday, September 26, 2022, as the date for public hearing on the budget, direct the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations to have published the notice of public hearing for this date and to display the tentative budget for fiscal year 2023 in the administration center as required by law.
Motion, Mrs. Chavez and Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next agenda item is also an annual item regarding designating interest. As you recall, we designate the interest earned each year, and that the interest earned in previous years is designated as interest. We can maintain it as interest, and it allows the board to move that interest across. Suggested motion is that the Board of Education adopt a resolution designating interest earnings for fiscal year 2023 as presented.
Motion, Mrs. Chavez and Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And another annual item, the resolution authorizing permanent interfund transfers for debt service purposes. And this is for the copier machine lease that the board approved a couple of years ago. And each year we transfer the funds from the ed fund to debt service. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education adopt the resolution authorizing permanent interfund transfers for debt service as presented.
Motion, Ms. O'Connell. Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Earlier this evening during the facilities committee, Jeremy and Ricardo from Gilbane reviewed the change orders that are presented this evening for your approval. Assuming there are no additional questions at this time, the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve change orders number 65 through 83 as presented.
Motion, Ms. O'Connell. Mrs. Chavez. Roll call, please.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Motion carried.
The next item is approval of change orders related to asbestos abatement. While they were working, they identified, and Jeremy explained that earlier this evening, when they identified additional asbestos that was not known at the start of the bidding process. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve asbestos abatement change order 2 and 3 as presented.
Roll call. Mr. Chavez and Mrs. Sosa. Roll call, please.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And I will quickly go through my oral report, where we received our on-demand payments for the NRG participation. That is the demand program where we have to shut down the electric as much usage as possible to get a baseline. And then if there is a demand day, Dale and I get the notification on that. So this year, the payments include $2,025, $674, and $1,611 approximately for the various accounts that we were able to break down the electric usage as required. In addition, I'd like to share with the board that the rebate on the P card this year, we earned $4,022.74. That will go in the ed fund and can be used however the board for you. then we received a credit for the additional gas that we had purchased. In June, we had 3,800 therms that we purchased at a fixed price. And we, for the month of June, we only used 500 therms. So they were able to sell 3,300 therms at the current rate, which generated a credit. It generated a credit of $1,217 and change. So that credit will continue to grow and apply to offset future use of the natural gas. And then I would like to bring to the board, periodically we lock in extend our natural gas and our electric. And so currently our natural gas is locked in through 2023. We purchased 50%, an additional 50% of our gas through FY25, and electric, we are currently locked in through June of 23, and we would like to look at locking in either through June of 24 or possibly June of 25. We'll work with Vanguard on what the best rates are, and he's currently anticipating within the next 3 months that we should make a move to secure our repurchase locked-in rate for electric. So I'm asking for consensus from the board that when Vanguard contacts us and says it's time, that either myself or Dr. Sullivan will be able to have the authority to sign, lock it in, and then bring it to the next board meeting for ratification. But the gas or the electric, when they say it's time to lock in, we have to respond that day. That rate doesn't carry over to the next day or to the board meeting. So the board has granted us authority in the past to do this. So I'm asking for that authority again. Consensus from the board.
For consensus.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then a skip update. We received an update on the insurance market. So the liability, currently excess placements are seeing larger increases of 10% and greater. School board legal liability, they're seeing increases around 10%. Property increases, with 7% being the starting point on property increases. And cyber, we expect that to be another hard year. And they are currently, these are the July 1 renewals, they're seeing between 40 and 80% increase on the cyber renewal. Well, last year was a huge jump in our cyber insurance cost. So we are on a 12/31 renewal. So we've already, the member districts of SCIP have already submitted their applications for the renewal, and the Gallagher team that manages SCIP is out working with the carriers to provide renewal proposals. So we'll have more information, and as I get updates, I will bring that to the board. The reminder is that the Cook County tax bills, they anticipate that they will be late, possibly as late as December going out, and this impacts the collections. I am working with, I received a projection from the township treasurer, to see where we will be at as far as the bond payments, because those are due December 1st. If the tax bills don't go out to December and collections are later, they can impact that. We have a cash fund over $4 million, which we could make a loan to other funds as necessary. Cook County has come out with a property tax bridge fund, and they will have informational sessions coming up. I'll attend these informational sessions to see if there's anything that would assist the board in managing that, any shortage due to the late tax bills. And then I'm also meeting with Tammy from PMA tomorrow afternoon to review our options to make sure that position, depending on how late and how late the collections come in.
Yes.
That is it, unless there are any questions.
Any questions? Good report, good update. That's really good. Thank you. Hey, Ms. Travis.
Listed on my oral report are our current vacancies. After tonight, we'll have a few more to add. But certified staff, we have about 15 vacancies, and support staff, we have 9 vacancies. Recently, we've tried to add some additional recruiting efforts. Dr. Sullivan put forth the referral bonus out to staff, that if they know of someone and that person is hired, that they would receive a stipend if that person is hired. We put out banners at each of the schools, letting people know that we are hiring and what positions we're hiring for. There's flyers up in the community in regards to it. And then just, word of mouth from staff or lunchroom supervisors, custodians, everyone. So we are trying to, increase our recruiting efforts. But as I talk to colleagues, we're in the same boat, process here. We just wanted to update you on our, vacancies and what are we doing to fill those vacancies.
We have a time frame of how long that person would have to work with us or the referee. The person referring will get their stipend.
We talked about that. What we did is it's from a grant. So it's a one-time, up to 10 referrals.
Okay.
Is what we can afford. We wrote a grant. And it's a total of $1,000. And in order to get it, that person would have to become one of our teachers. It's hard to put on that how long that person will stay, because you go through the evaluation process. But the expectation is that new staff member would become a permanent member of our team. But it's hard to put that out in a bonus because you never know what's going to happen when you hire someone.
Right, I mean, you can have somebody. I've seen it where you don't have to have that person employed with us for a year. 3 months, 6 months.
We can't break it. That's. We can't keep it playing.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to make sure we get a referral, not just get it. That's the whole purpose.
They have to be hired.
Right.
I use it all the time.
Right.
I use it all.
And they have to be hired. I mean, you can
Okay.
refer them, but they have to actually be recommended for hire in order for.
Yeah, has the whole
And accept.
background. Sure.
And accept.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I think we should monitor it just in case. We're paying for referral. Person's coming in that you.
I'd be back here with another resolution. Actually, no, I wouldn't, because they'd be non-tenured.
How we stand with the leadership in our buildings, like the principal, assistant principal, they open?
No,
Good.
They accept this last year.
Good report, Mr. Travis. I know you're working hard.
We are.
I think the leaders where we need to be. So give Mr. Travis a applause. I know it's very, very, very challenging.
Yes, it is.
All work areas, very challenging. Okay? But go, Mr. White. Oh, Mr. Burns, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Oh, we see you already, Mr. Burns, okay.
All right, just a few updates. So Jeremy had mentioned a little bit of a race to the finish line to get some things in writing, North Lake set up. So the majority of the demolition and construction had to take place before we could do a lot of our technology stuff. So cable has just finished being run, as phones for classroom data, security cameras and access points. So tomorrow we're going to have people in data closets installing UPSs, switches, patch cables, and so forth. I'm doing a walkthrough at Sunnyside tomorrow in preparation of doing work at Riley and Northlake. Our displays and our mounts and our speakers are coming in later this week, or our displays and our mounts will. So they're coming in on August 8th. So then we'll have a tight timeline to get all of Riley and Northlake installed, tested for teachers and students. So a lot of work being put there. So we're looking at networks, classroom technologies for the first day of school. So that's a lot of priorities. Delivering, as we know, has been challenging. We're threading needles, but I'm confident we'll have a good start to the school year. Also, we received our Chromebooks for the school year, so that was about 740 Chromebooks. So I got to give a special thanks out to Heidi Karras in our technology department. She has been working really hard with kind of team that we assembled to get all the Chromebooks working. The other members of the technology department, Jeff, Riley, Wei, are working very hard just to get all the classroom technology ready to go for the start of the school year. So there's more to talk about, but that's a quick update.
So you okay with this spot grant as far as all the communication for all the buildings ready to go?
Yeah, that we're gonna be meeting next couple days about security cameras and access control. So I'm at a place where we can do as much as we can do, but there's some limitations, right? So like security cameras, for instance, we will not be able to get all security cameras up and running at Riley North. But we have to remember, we're adding a substantial amount more cameras. So the goal to start the school year is we have security cameras set up at entrances and exits, which would put us where we were last year, so we could have safe entrances and exits from visitors specifically. So we'll prioritize doors where we get to visit, right? Would it be great if on the first day, all, let's say 40 cameras at Riley and Northlake were up? Of course, but we have such a tight window where we're just starting some of them. So do I feel good? Yeah, I do feel good that the work that is very crucial to teaching and learning, safety will be in place.
Appreciate you.
Yeah,
Take
thank
your
you.
lead on this.
Likewise.
Taking your lead, okay? You're ready to go.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White.
We've talked about the asbestos, additional asbestos work. We are moving, transitioning from the summer thing to prepare for the start of school. This year, I think we had some, over the past years, we've tried to pressure wash Jefferson, Whittier. We've had some troubles with it, so I got some professional help this year. And it looks much better this year, because they needed special. So we had good help with that, so. Now that I know that worked well, we'll continue to budget and plan for those as needed in some of the higher up spaces. We talked about the pumps. Jefferson's playground's almost done. I think the only thing left is for the rubber part of Jefferson's playground. We not have installation date for that.
Do we have materials?
Everything's in except for the rubber.
I mean, stock. The rubber's not in stock.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm
Okay.
not sure. That's about it.
Well, once again, good report. I think you really supervising a nice project here. We want to thank you from the board for that. You're doing a good job. Continue to make sure we communicate those contractors. I was concerned today when I think his name is Ricardo. We need him to be more engaging. Okay, when he come and make a good presentation to the board, we want to talk about tell us a story. Okay, we didn't need Jeremy to tell a story because he's the one overseeing the company. So let's make sure that's being done. Okay?
Well, one other question. Totally agreement with the self-performance. I'd like to understand the skill set. Yeah, two, what's their skill set? Christian, HVAC, historical, what the work orders are. What's that? No, the maintenance, because you wanted to supervise and maintenance. Then, my comment, as I shared with the other. With the people. Yeah,
Cargo journey.
well, yes, about those, that quote. That seemed to assess, the first. Yeah. Again, I'm still baffled by that number, because I run it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. White. Any other questions from any member of the board before we get in position to leave? I want to thank the board for just organizing tonight. I know last week we did not have our regular board meeting this week, so thank you for making an attempt to come on tonight. I know it's been a long night for all of us, so thank you for that. It was very important that we meet tonight because we have some timelines, right, Laura, that we have to make. So thanks everybody for coming out. I think we got time for your time, right?
We did.
Ms. Morrow, we got another member of our team that was talking today. We want him in our meetings. I mean, we loved him, okay?
Thank you.
That team knows how to crash out, okay? All right.
That's the bedtime.
Other new business, any other new business from the board, anyone on the board? Okay. The next regular board meeting will be August 29th. Look out, 6:30? Still at 6:30 meeting, right? So, we have no other questions or concerns, and a motion to. Motion, oh, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Social, Mr. Jackson Social. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.